Welcome to the real Monster D. That would be me. Kaiju. Yokai. How and in what ways do these two things differ from one another? Well, let us dig into each one at a time, shall we? Kaiju, the word itself, translates from Japanese to mean strange beast. Kaiju are creatures purely coming from fiction, coming from entertainment. There is no mistake about whether or not they are real. It is often said and cited that Godzilla himself is the very first kaiju of them all. So a part of what makes a kaiju is that it is based in science, or science fiction, quite literally. So it takes the backbones of real creatures, of real situations such as radiation, radioactivity, and the elements, and then combines them into this sort of larger than life, fantastical sort of walking allegory. So that would be a kaiju. Although the word itself goes back even further. Before it being used in entertainment, there were times when the word kaiju was used during newly discovered sort of dinosaur fossil finds, and even when the 1926 film The Lost World was first brought over to Japan, the word kaiju was applied to its Japanese title there. So there is this feeling of kaiju being applied to something new, something newly discovered, something previously thought unimaginable, something immense. And part of what makes a kaiju is its extremes. Well, not necessarily its size, although kaiju could mean any strange beast. Technically, Pokemon are considered kaiju. When most people say kaiju, they really mean daikaiju, which literally means giant strange beast. So because the first, true kaiju was Godzilla, that has sort of stuck with him and his ilk all the way through. So kaiju are based on science, turned into science fiction. Guillermo del Toro, in his commentary for Pacific Rim, described kaiju as being ornamental. They are more than larger than life. They are beyond imagination. Just a mere big version of an existing animal would not count. Something like the rabbits from Night of the Lepus or the tarantula from the movie Tarantula would not count as kaiju. They're just big versions of normal creatures. Now, if those rabbits started shooting eye beams, if that spider could turn into a flying saucer or something, then maybe we could talk. Yokai, on the other hand, that root word means strange apparition. But notice the root word kai, which means strange, now comes second. So the word apparition takes precedence over its strangeness. Yokai also come from a form of entertainment that actually predates film. So far back does it go that it is often, while these creatures come from fairy tales, stories, they have been inextricably intertwined with actual Japanese folklore and legend. Externally, people tend to believe the Japanese believe in these creatures as being real. So there's always this sort of blurred, marred confusion about whether yokai are meant to be believed or not. Some people almost put them in alignment with sort of like cryptids, like Bigfoot. But yokai come from a magical side of things, relying on spirits and mysticism rather than on science. In fact, the yokai themselves are spirits, not necessarily spirits from deceased people, but they are spirits that are created to sort of inhabit various environments, whether it be forests or ponds, or sometimes they inhabit certain objects. and they are just these sort of physical representations of these areas. They're protectors often. While they can be both malevolent and benevolent, they often are seen as guardians to whatever place they inhabit, sort of guards between the material and sort of spiritual realms. Perhaps the easiest way to really compare these two is to look at some physical examples of them. Now, going back to kaiju, we'll go right down the line. We'll compare. We'll go to the herald of all kaiju, Godzilla himself, based structurally on dinosaurs, and also with an origin that envelops him in radioactivity. Godzilla is the quintessential kaiju. Now, back to yokai. The sort of star of all the yokai is Kappa. This is this sort of water-based creature that inhabits ponds and streams. Depending upon your source, this creature is either sort of a protector of natural things, or sometimes a font of mischievousness. Whenever hapless children get a little too close to the streams, he may well pull them in. Back on the kaiju side, we have Gigan. You know, this outlandish fellow is a representation of space and biomechanics, that sort of thing. He is at once a living thing, but was also, to some extent, constructed by a people. And then on the yokai side, we have... Wait a minute. Daimajin? Really? Is Daimajin a yokai? Wait a minute. I thought he was a kaiju. I mean, he's giant. He steps on cities. Well, wooden-made cities, but he does the city destruction thing. But to be fair, Daimajin is a spiritual being that employs magic in his powers. He is said to be a guardian spirit, a god, he is called in his trilogy of films. So, yes, I suppose that makes sense. In fact, Daimajin is making his big screen return as a guest in the upcoming Yokai Wars film, so that settles it. I suppose Daimajin is, in fact, a yokai. So there you go. That is the difference between kaiju and yokai. Kaiju are these physical, science-based monsters, and yokai are spiritual beings. But that does not stop me from wanting to see them clash. I still want to see a Daimajin versus Gamera, or really Daimajin versus any other monster, bringing him more and more into the forefront. But yes, so what do you think? What are some other marquee kaiju and yokai? Feel free to let me know who you think about when either of these words are uttered in the comments below. Are you in the mood for a monster? 5-minute monsters have returned! Enjoy a 30-minute experience in your own home, where I draw all the monsters I can muster. I am going to pull the monster right out of your very own mind. I will do so by using my magic monster maker. Order your experience at therealmonsterd.com. I make no small secret of the fact that Ronnie James Dio is my favorite musician of all time. And in fact, my favorite band, I often say, is the Dio-era Black Sabbath. In his tenure there, he created a trio of monstrous metal albums, with a little bit of space in between the first two and the latter of the three. But these albums have gone on to be lauded by many, many people and loved and cherished. Granted, a few people have not been so fond of them, perhaps the so-called Aussie purists who do not see fit to have changes to their beloved band. But so many more people have enjoyed these songs. They have been so amazing. Just the musicality, just the soaring, dark nature of them. There's some quality music. But with all this music that has been created by these wonderful musicians, there are 3 songs, three spiritually spooky songs that are very often overlooked. And these songs appear in this album right here. This is Black Sabbath, The Dio Years. This was a compilation album that came out in 2007. Now keep in mind, when this came out, this was already more than a decade past the time that Ronnie split from Sabbath after a debacle just following the Dehumanizer album. So they had just come back together to help put together this compilation of songs from all three of the previous Dio-era Sabbath albums. But not being a fan of compilations or live albums, Ronnie wanted to do something special here. So they got together with the plan of recording 2 brand new songs. But they had such a wonderful time recording that they went on to record 3. And I'm going to talk about those 3 right now. The first of these 3 brand new tracks is The Devil Cry.
The master told a story.
Sort of a dark fable of an unfortunate spirit who fell to the fiery world below and is trying to find a way to appeal to the Dark Lord's softer side to win his own way back up to ascension.
There are whispers between the screams that this deed can be done.
Next is my personal favorite, Shadow of the Wind. This is a deep, dark, truly doomy song that is just pure dark atmosphere. Shadows and spiders and a dark garden are all mentioned here, and it just pulls you into this frightening dark world. This is the stuff of horror films, and yet there is this delicate beauty to it as well. For the way that it ascends and descends with Ronnie's flowing and vastly powerful voice, and one of the most dank sort of Tony Iommi riffs ever.
Still you chase what you can see, like death and pain and sin and the shadow of the wind.
And lastly is the much quicker paced Year in the Wall, a very eerie, pun slightly intended, tale about a gentleman who sees a very strange sight peeking out from the wall of his very own home.
I've seen an ear in the wall.
So creepy is this that he wants to employ an exorcist, a wizard, and a Holy Ghost to take care of this. What I appreciate about these songs, I mean, for one, they are all very high quality songs. They're amazing. They very much sound like what would have happened had this band continued in this form beyond Dehumanizer. So they very much pick up where that left off and carry it to another level. So influential were these songs that they inspired the band to stay together long enough to put in some live performances. They actually performed live in Radio City Music Hall. And then after that, they went on to record another brand new album called The Devil You Know, this time under the band moniker Heaven and Hell. So if you have not delved into the darkness that is these 3 songs, The Devil Cried, The Shadow of the Wind, and The Ear in the Wall, I highly recommend you get your claws on Black Sabbath The Dio Years. For yes, I'm saying it, buying this entire thing is well worth the price just for these 3 songs. And actually, this was the very album that really had me take a deep dive into the lore of Ronnie James Dio and his time in Sabbath. I had this before I had any of those original albums, and then I went back and filled my library with them. So, a great starter for somebody who is maybe only aware of the Aussie era Sabbath. Go ahead and give this this entire album a listen, especially these Dark Three. Looking for a monstrous keepsake for your loved one? How about a monster on demand? I turn your loved ones, pets, even yourself into highly detailed, personalized monster images. Order yours today at therealmonsterd.com. Welcome to the drawing challenge. You know, this whole episode about spiritual beings, spiritual monsters, has had me thinking. You know, we were just talking about the differences between kaiju and yokai, and I thought, why do they have to be so different? Why do we not make some effort to bring them together? So, that is exactly what my drawing challenge is. I am going to create not a kaiju, not a yokai, but a yokaiju. Ooh, how will that work? Well, I really do not know, so let us see. Let me start my time-telling device. And let us begin this strange apparition beast of a drawing. So, I'm going to begin with... It's very interesting, beginning with a drawing that has very little background. I mean, I'm going to quickly, you see me doing a little bit of a understructure here as I figure my way through this. This understructure is actually going to play into this character, hopefully by the end. So, both kaiju and yokai. So that means this is going to be a giant monster that stems from both science fiction and mystical fantasy. So, okay. So we're going to make it look mystical and scientific at the same exact time. What an interesting challenge. So, one way to quickly capture the mystical element is one thing I notice about a lot of yokai, unlike kaiju, is a lot of yokai tend to wear some form of clothing or armor. So, how about we clad this fellow? We'll give him sort of like a kind of like a kimono type situation. There we go. And then maybe make it sort of like almost like a dinosaur type with the arms and hands. So it might be a little typical in the kaiju department, but then we have to augment that to make it all the more spiritual. Here. I know its eye would be on the other side, but I'm using that to already make it look a little more spiritually worthy. Giving it multiple eyes on the one side, so you can assume that those eyes are on the other side. So there we go. And then give this creature a tail that goes off screen. Give this creature some legs. So far it is kind of looking like a multi-eyed raptor with a kimono on. Is that working for you? I may very well be creating a brand new genre of monster as we speak, but perhaps not. Perhaps not. Let me add some other color to this fellow. Let's see. Some red kimono action going on here. Just a hint of the color at the very least. And then, I stand a real good chance of running out of time on this one. The understructure is what will have killed the time. And then the green, and then the green, and then the green. Cover up some of that understructure, make that sort of disappear. And then come back with the blue. Really have it emanating its sort of spiritual powers. So there we go. Maybe this creature is also emanating something else. A little radioactivity. So it's like radioactive magic. Maybe some radioactive breath. Oh! Wow. What a fun, fantastical exercise that was. So, what do you think? Does this drawing and capture all that is kaiju and yokai? What do you think? What to you are the essential elements of both? And what would you name such a character? Oh, I suppose I should sign it. There we go. So, I hope you have enjoyed this drawing challenge, just as I hope you have enjoyed this monstrous, spiritually tinged episode entire. If you have, will you not please claw that like button and toll that bell so you can be ready, willing, and salivating for the very next episode of The Real Monster D. Stay monstrous!